Hello everyone, and welcome to Woods Walks. Instead of walking through the woods today, we're going to float through it. On our very first aquatic episode. This actually isn't the first time I tried to record one of these, but the waterway that I was planning on doing at was all clogged up with logs, and I barely did any kayaking. So today we're out here at Lake Pemberton, or Pemberton Lake, in Pemberton, New Jersey. And we're gonna just paddle around and see if anything insightful hits me. So, the lake we're on right now actually used to be one of the most pristine lakes in New Jersey. And then the geese happened. You can see the water's kind of like a murky, like puce almost. Never used to be like that. It used to be clear. Then the geese got in here and started crapping on everything, and it all went to hell. Geese are terrible for ecosystems. Ooh, look, a turtle. Speaking of ecosystems, let's go say hi to that turtle over there. That's a big one. It looks like a turtle. Oh yeah, he just poked his head up. Hello, Mr. Turtle. See if we can get close to him without him going underwater. Looks too small to be a snapper. That's not a painter either. Oh, there he goes. Bye, Mr. Turtle. Anyway, as I was saying, where I got inevitably distracted. Geese are terrible for environments because they just sit in the same area all day long and just crap all over the place. This lake might have anywhere upwards to 1,000 geese in it or more, depending on the season. The local goose population is in the hundreds. Oh, there's our turtle. He just poked his head up. The local goose population around here is in the hundreds, and the migratory population when they come down in the fall is in the thousands. New Jersey's part of the Eastern Flyway for migrating birds and come down the East Coast. We don't get it as much as states like Maryland do, like in the Chesapeake Bay. That place is filled with migratory birds, but we get some of them. Is that the turtle again? Let's go play tag with him. Yeah, it's just a stick. Might be a stick. No, it's our turtle. Hey, buddy. Oh, I tapped him. You're it. Yeah, during the fall, well, later in the fall, we get all kinds of duck in here. We get mallards, wood duck, scup, ruddy ducks. Ruddy ducks are one of my favorite to watch take off. Because they got a little like dorsal tail feather that sticks up. That's how you can identify them from a distance. And when they take off, it looks like they're running on water. They go and they just sort of splash across the surface and then take off. It's pretty cool looking. And they like the open water. And clearly there's plenty of that around here. I like ducks. I don't like geese, but I do like ducks. Even though I shoot both of them. The difference for me is I shoot ducks for sport and because they taste really good. I shoot geese because I don't like them. I mean, we do eat both of them at the Heron household, but duck is a much better dish. Goose is very dry and gamey, and if you don't know how to prepare it right, it comes out terribly. But we had to find creative ways to cook them because the place that we were hunting in a few years ago was another big lake like this that became overcrowded with geese, and the owners finally had enough of it and brought in the Eckerts as exterminators. And we were killing like 50 geese a year, so we had to find, we were giving geese away, we were making jerky out of them. We were making shredded goose, cook it in a crock pot, and then add barbecue sauce to it. It's not bad. We got to the point we were just breasting them out. because picking a goose is much like picking a turkey. It's a big, about 10-pound bird. They're fully grown. Especially around here, they get even bigger because they eat a bunch of corn and soybeans. That fattens them up. They get a lot bigger than just the grass-feds. But definitely out of the two, I prefer ducks to eat to geese, because duck is rather tasty. Wild duck is a little more chewy and less fatty than domestic duck, because it flies around its whole life, doesn't just walk around and eat grain. But it's still delicious, especially if you prepare it right. I always look forward to duck nights whenever it comes to eating. And on that topic, about 1/4 of the meat in my house comes from stuff that I've hunted, or my dad does. My mom used to hunt, but she gave it up. She became more of a nature lover. We got all kinds of stuff in the freezer. We got duck, we got goose, we got deer. And deer makes up a majority of our meat. We usually get about 3 or 4 a year. Grind it up into hamburger, which in my opinion tastes better than cow. We also make tenderloin chops. We make chip steak out of it, all kinds of stuff. And it's organic. Well, as organic as it can be, eating all this stuff that's sprayed on crops, but it's been, you think about it, it's one of the more humane ways to source your meat. Any followers of Joe Rogan's podcast have heard this lecture 100 times, but you know, there's some people out there who haven't. So we're gonna give it to you guys anyway. I'm gonna try to get out of the sun here so the sun's not in your eyes. But my theory has always been, when I argue with people who are like, oh, hunting's cruel, I was like, a hunted animal, in most cases, has no idea it's being hunted until it's too late. It's just minding its own business, going about its life until it's not alive anymore. A couple seconds and it's dead, if done right. Compare that to the misery that a lot of cows, chickens, turkeys, and pigs have to put up with in slaughterhouse conditions. It's really a preferable life. Especially because in the case of deer, most deer are killed during the rut. Those of you who don't know, deer go into heat twice a year. And the males, otherwise known as bucks, go absolutely nuts. They go crazy for sex. And they just trying to start having sex like a bunch of horny teenagers after puberty with no restraints. There's actually been some cases of deer dying of exhaustion because they don't eat during the rut, that they're that concerned about chasing tail, literally. And so imagine you've been minding your business for the couple of years you've been alive. I mean, it's like dog years. You grow up quick in the animal kingdom. And you're walking around with a raging heart on, and all of a sudden somebody shoots you, and a couple seconds later you're dead. I would take that any day to sitting around in a prison for 8 months to a year, to be dragged up onto a platform and killed. I mean, that's just me personally, but that's always the argument that I use against people who are anti-hunting. They think it's cruel and immoral. And in reality, what I just described, to me at least, seems far more moral than buying it from the grocery store. The real difference is, at the end of the day, is the stuff at the grocery store doesn't have a face. You don't have to look it in the eye when you pull the trigger. And that's where a lot of people get hung up on. They see hunters as monsters who killed innocent creatures as they were minding their business. Well, it's part of the circle of life, people. Humans are apex predators. We've just gotten ourselves in a position in our society where the majority of our people do not have to work in agriculture or as hunter-gatherers, and so we've forgotten that side of ourselves. We suppress our instincts, our cunning, our ability to make tools and weapons, to be able to feed our families. And instead we apply it to other jobs. And those other jobs allow us to provide for our family. We don't have to hunt for it. But about 2% of the population, at least in America, still decides to hunt. It's a shrinking population, but it's a community I'll never turn my back on because I enjoy it. Oh, look at that. Speak of the devil, we've got some of the local lake polluters. Let's go say hi. Also looks like a snowy egret too. I'll leave the egret alone because I don't mind them. They're pretty cool looking animals. But the geese, we'll go harass them a little bit. Oh, I would love to have a gun right now. Get 2 or 3 with one shot. Yeah, that's right. Neil's coming. Be very afraid. I was out here last year shooting them. Actually, there should be one crippled one around here because one got away. I shot him, let's see. I shot him around the edge of this island. We were sitting on this island right in front of us, and he swam all the way to where that gap in the trees is over there, and I chased him the whole way. You see, this is a lake where there's houses along here, so the area we were allowed to shoot is very narrow. So once we got out to about the middle of the lake, no longer bring my gun with me. And so I was chasing after this goose, and he kept diving on me. Every time I'd get up to him, he'd dive and then pop up about 10 feet away. And I have to pick my paddle up and try to grab him. Eventually, he made it up on land. I don't know how. I don't know what happened to him. I would assume there'd be one with a broken wing around here somewhere, swimming around, unless he got eaten by something or hit by a car, which is very possible. I mean, there's enough grass and stuff for him to eat. He could have survived the winter. Unless he died later of his wounds. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I was right where that stick juts out off the island there. I was there and I paddled all the way to the other side here. Full tilt. Like, I was digging in as hard as I could. Actually pulled a muscle in my back doing it. And that goose just, he wanted to live and he kept swimming. Which bothered me for a number of reasons. One, I obviously wanted to kill him. And 2, it bothered me because I left something crippled on the water. That is one of the few times I ever feel bad when it comes to killing something. Usually I approach it with the same heartless attitude I do as everything else. Just fulfilling our roles in nature. Yeah, let me see if I can find, I believe it's right up there is where he finally got out of the water. He kept hiding in the overhanging tree growth, and it was getting dark, and I lost him. Like I said, I don't see any single goose here just swimming by himself, so I assume he died of something. That either pellets worked its way into his heart or lungs, he just didn't realize it yet, or he went underwater and he drowned. Because sometimes they do that. They keep diving too frequently and they go underwater and stay underwater and die. Yeah, he was right about where that sun's coming through the cove there. It was a hell of a chase. I'm actually surprised there's not more geese out here right now. Then again, it is early. They're still out in the fields eating at this point. You can tell they've been roosting here. You can see all the leaves on the water here where they sit and they prune themselves. Yeah, I chased him up in here in the dark, in this undergrowth here. I lost him. Oh, kingfisher. They're cool little birds. Can't tell you how many times I've almost shot them because they come in low on the water line. They look just like a duck flying. Raise the gun up, like, oh, it's a kingfisher. Yeah, he got up on the bank somewhere around here, and I lost him. And I don't see any goose skeletons laying around, so I guess he didn't die right on here on the spot. But so that was a year ago, so who knows? Got a fellow yacker out here on the other dock. Yeah, he swam all that distance to get away from me. It's probably, I'd say at least 300 yards, maybe more. It's nuts, man. Sometimes nature just finds a way to survive. I remember I was hunting deer season one year. We hunt with a club that pushes deer. I know I've mentioned it several times on the podcast already, but I know some people aren't subscribers to the podcast, so I figured I'd clarify that. And we had one deer who ran across the standards, who were all in a line about 80 yards apart. And I watched this deer get shot by every single one of this. He got hit by at least 6 people, just unloading into him. And you can see the buckshot hitting him in the chest and the lower body. Just, you can see the hair flying out of him. And by the time he died, both of his front legs were shattered, and he was plowing with his knees, and he was still trying to run. He must have had 30 buckshot pellets in him, at least. Because these guys weren't shooting and missing. Like I said, you could see the buckshot impacting on his chest. And then there must have been nothing left of that deer. I would not have wanted to gut at him. Because I've mentioned this also before on the show, is that a gut shot deer smells absolutely awful. Once you open up those intestines and get that digested grain and grass, it's real nasty. The sugar starts to break down and ferment and rot in the stomach, and it smells disgusting. You know as soon as you put the knife in a deer whether it's been hit in the guts or not. The only thing worse for the meat is to break the bladder when you're gutting them. So you gotta cut around the anus and then pull it out from the back. And when you do that, sometimes the bladder breaks and you get deer piss all over your meat. Which well, it doesn't ruin it. You can wash it off, but it's not the best thing to have urine over something you're planning on eating. See, the wind's really going against me today. So I'm paddling right hard. Alright, so I figure, since we're out on the boat, for those of you who don't know what you're doing on the water, I'll give you guys a few pointers. So here's a kayak. I have a dual paddle, but the principle is nearly the same as canoeing. You want to go in a straight line, you have to alternate back and forth. And if you want to turn in a specific direction, say I wanted to go left, I want to push from the opposite. I want to push all right. And alternatively, if I want to go right, boom, and straighten around again. Now in kayaking, you can do something that's far easier than in a canoe. You can do what's called ruddering. If you want to turn hard, you take the paddle in the direction you want to go and dig in and push forward. That'll bring you to a pretty complete stop, as well as turning your nose around. Now the key thing for kayaking is you gotta be balanced, because it's just you in here. You want to keep your knees locked up against the side if you can. That's why I prefer this style to the more open styles, because you got a lot more stability. The only real downside is it's hard to get in and out of because of the small mouth here. But you see my knees down here are locked against the side. Really, I can rock back and forth without flipping over. I probably should stop doing that because I forgot to put my phone in a plastic bag before going, which is something you should always do. You always want to get like a plastic or rubber container. I know they do make specific containers for smartphones and all, but you know, a quart-sized plastic bag works just as well. We got a fellow kayaker on the water. He's going fishing. Ooh, that is directly in the sun. Directly. Alright, let's canoe around the sun to avoid some lens flares here. I should have done this earlier in the day, but I was too busy playing Minecraft. I got into Saturday lazy mode, and I didn't feel like getting out of the house. But I figured I needed some exercise. Get some good workout to the biceps and the back and the shoulders. Which kayaking is. It's a wonderful upper body workout. So if you're struggling with that upper body tone, like going to the gym, and now the sun's over there. If you're struggling with the upper body tone, you should consider something like rowing or kayaking. Very good for you. And now I'll teach you guys something that I learned from years of hunting out of kayaks. It's what I call the stealth paddle. Say you want to sneak up on something with a kayak. It's hard to do, and it's not totally effective, but it's much easier. You can hear the loud noise as I'm cupping the water. And so if you want to stealth paddle, you got to keep it straight in and then flip your paddle upside down so it doesn't, see how the paddle is curved here? You don't want to cup the water. So when you go in, you bring it back. Now you're still going to get some water dripping off your paddle, but it monumentally reduces the noise. See, now you're only getting a few drips from the thing. You can't move as fast. So to put it in on an angle and then lift it up to the side. Like I said, it's not 100% effective, but it works sometimes. Especially if you're doing something like ambush hunting, which we do occasionally for ducks. We float down the creek and try to shoot them on the water as they fly away. It's pretty hard, especially because they like to hide on the long stretches where they can see things coming in multiple directions. But every now and again you get lucky. One will be like up here where you see where the vegetation overhangs the water. Sometimes they dive under the water there. Look, a heron, or an egret. I always get those two confused. It's one of those frog eaters. But yeah, every now and again you catch them by surprise and you can get a shot at them, because if you're kayaking, say this is our creek here, we try to stay to the bank. You activate the stealth paddle. You want to sneak up. You want to use the brush to obscure your outline because you stick out like a sore thumb on the water. I have a spider on me there. And then you want to set your direction. I'm going to drop the paddle. You got to pick up your gun and then float into the shot and brace for recoil. You want to lock your knees against the side. And it's hard to do sometimes because usually they catch you right as you're trying to put the paddle down and pick the gun up. And there's multiple ways you can use your gun setup. You can lay your gun across the side, which is dangerous because if you hit a branch or rock or something, you might lose your $1,000 shotgun. But it's also quicker. You can drop the paddle, pick the gun up, and shoot. What I like to do, as long as there's not a lot of overhanging trees, is I put the gun in between my legs like this, and then I drop the paddle, and then I can pull into the shot. But, you know, it's a matter of personal preference, whatever feels comfortable to you. We got another turtle? I think we do, right there by that tree root. Let's see if he'll let us get close. Hello, Mr. Turtle. That's a big one. That might be a snapper. Nah, is it? Oh, the mouth looks a little small to be a snapper. Hello, Mr. Turtle. Nah, that's not a snapper. Hello. Oh, he's just sitting there nice and pretty for us. Hi. You gonna wave back? Oh. Apparently Mr. Egret didn't like us too much there. The turtle, he's just sitting there chilling in the sun. It's It's one of those cool encounters with nature you get out in the woods. Oh, we got another little turtle over here. Looks like a painter. Let's see if he'll let us say hi to him. Hello, Mr. Turtle. Hello. Oh, had enough of that. They like to sit up on the logs and rocks because they're cold-blooded, and the water's pretty cold right now. Actually, well, it's not terribly cold, but still, it's better to be out in the sun to help warm the blood. Got a bunch of water striders here. Just one of the other wonderful encounters of nature. We used to have a pet snapper. Well, it wasn't a pet. My dad captured it from a job site he was on years back, and we kept it in a big trash can. And we used to feed it the minnows that would die off when we go fishing. We get the live bait, the minnows, we'd dump them in there. And it was cool because she would let them settle to the bottom of the can, and then it would just be pure thrashing for a couple minutes, and then they just all be gone. It was nuts. It was always cool to watch. We kept her for a couple weeks, and then we let her go in the creek behind the house. She was about that big too. And them snappers are nasty. They don't get as big as the alligator snappers down in like Florida, the Everglades, but they still get pretty sizable. I remember once when I was a kid, I accidentally drowned a turtle. Caught a pretty big box turtle crossing the lawn, and I was like, oh, it's a turtle, it loves the water. And so I took him and threw him in the water, and I didn't know that they were non-aquatic turtles, because 12-year-old me didn't know that some turtles were not aquatic. And he just sort of splashed around there, and I felt sad. I'm getting really shallow water here. I'm not even a paddle depth. I get stuck out here. That's why the turtles are out here, because it's shallow water. Shallow water warms faster than the deeper water. I'm getting back out into the deeper stuff now. Well, I think that'll just about do it for today's woods walk. It's been fun, guys. Actually, you know what? Let's go over one more basic of kayaking. Landing. That's important. You want to be able to get off the water. You don't want to spend the rest of your life in the water like Kevin Costner in Waterworld. So we'll do a quick little tutorial on beaching. The trick is you want to be totally straight to your target. So let's say we're going to aim for that opening there in the water. Or in the trees, I mean. You want to keep her straight, and as you get close to shore, you want to build up a lot of speed, like one of the ancient triremes beaching itself. And you just want to ram her up there as hard as possible. You want to try to find a low bank like that, and then the beach kind of got shallower than I thought it was. The idea is to get your prow on the land there so you can get out without getting your feet wet, but it's really shallow beach here. But that's the general idea. So with that, I like to say, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to enjoy some nature and stay safe.